What's up, y'all? You are listening to For the Artists, a podcast brought to you by Creative M Projects. I'm your host, Melissa Sharee. I hope that as you're listening to this podcast, it finds you well and in a good place. But if for some reason your day's a little off, you know what? It's all good because the person that I'm bringing on, we're going to have a conversation. And I believe that by the time we're done with our conversation, you will be encouraged and uplifted, and you will feel better than how you felt when you first started listening. Okay. But let me get into telling you about my feature today. Okay. Her name is Japa, and she has been an advocate for wellness and healing her entire life, which is why we vibe. Okay. We're all about health and wellness. I love it. It's taken her some time to find her artistic calling in this space. However, she's finding it and she's pursuing her gifts in various different endeavors. She's been doing that throughout her journey. She's been writing self-help blogs. She's been creating feel-good memes, leading gratitude walks, starting mantra chants, doing motivational talks, coaching. I mean, she does so many things. She offers her gifts through teaching and all different sorts of ways. She continues to tap into her artistic expression, which is very motivating. I love her dearly. Her name is Japa, and you already know if you were here, I would tell you to give it up for my girl Japa. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you.
I love it because we met, on the Pilates path. We were getting certified to do Pilates instructive intensive reformer. And I mean, who knew? Fast forward, have we known each other 10 years yet?
Just about January, I think.
Yeah, we're close. I'm like, and to see how life has kind of evolved in those 10 years, a lot has happened. It's been crazy. So you're doing breath work now.
Yeah, I'm doing breath work and I really feel like it's my calling. I've finally gotten to this place where I've been able to blend all my other gifts with like coaching and understanding the body from the Pilates training and the way the diaphragm works, and coupling it with breath work really has given me this avenue to help people in the space they need the most, which is whatever kind of breakthrough and healing they need from the inside out. So it's been quite amazing to say the least.
Okay, so since you dropped the word calling, I'm gonna go there because I feel like as artists, there's definitely a difference between people that feel like they have been called to do artistry or be artistic or creative, and those that feel like it's not a calling, but it's just a thing. So talk to me a little bit more about how or how you're starting to feel more confident that the direction that you're going in is more like of a calling. I know it's a loaded question. I don't
Yeah,
script
it
anything, so
really
people always have
is.
to think about it on the spot. I mean,
um, well, I think the path hasn't been easy.
Hmm.
And I think because the path hasn't been so cut out and straight and just kind of like, oh, this jump and this jump and this jump and this jump, and you get there. But because it's been more of something else that's been drawing me to it,
Mm-hmm.
it's been a real journey. I mean, breath work has become a big part of my life because what it's done for me. And for a while, I thought coaching, executive coaching, personal development was my calling, or, teaching was my calling. But really the path to those avenues was pretty simple for me.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a lot of personal journeying I went through to get there. And with breath work, it really was like my personal journey that led me to this great place of healing within myself. And then I was asked from that, like when people that know me and met me were talking to me, were like, what are you doing? How are you here? Like, you should teach this or you should do this. But it stemmed from like me being at a place where I'm like, breath work works. It worked for me first. It's like, like a singer, like when you sing, like your vocal expression is like, it's like you're coming to life in a whole other form,
Mhm.
right? Is not yourself as a human being, but this other energy. And breath work, when I do breath work, that's what it was doing for me. It was giving me space to be somebody that I didn't even know I could be.
Mhm.
And when I coach, or when I lead breath work sessions, I should say, it's very similar. It's like I'm channeling something that's not me on a day-to-day basis otherwise.
As you're talking, um, I had a thought or something came up because it's so interesting. You were talking about almost like becoming something that you're not. But the thought that I had is that with being creative and with expressing yourself in a creative way, an artsy way, it's like it's really like you transcend the place that you are to go higher. It's almost like you transcend the natural space that you're in and you start flowing in a place that is above, which some people would call the supernatural or whatever. But so I mean, I would challenge you to say that like it's not even necessarily that you're becoming something that you're not. It's that you're tapping into, like we tap into like who we really are. Does that make sense?
Complete and total sense. I think the word that I was missing was transcendence. And I think that's exactly the experience I've had. But I just wasn't connecting it. So thank you.
Yeah. So now because I know you, and we're friends. Um I wanted to ask you or get a little bit of insight because it's like you're making a shift. Like you've done healing and you've done wellness, and that has been something that's kind of been a priority or at the forefront for you for, like you said, all of your life. But how you have demonstrated that, or like the choices that you've made to do that, have been different along the way. So your more recent shifting, it's like what was behind or what was the motivation for your most recent shift in specifically into, you know what, I want to express myself and I want to help people and I want to do it through breath work. Like was there something very specific that happened, or was it just a build up of over time your experiences and your knowledge all kind of coming together?
And so, I was saying I went through a journey myself, and breath work, I would say, sometimes people say it changes their life. I say it saved my life. So breath work was
Mm,
that powerful. And prior to breath work, when I was doing all the other stuff, I had been asked to step into roles that I wasn't ready to step into because whatever I was offering to the world, I was like, this isn't my gift. I haven't tapped into my gift yet. I don't know what it is. And once I experienced how breath work impacted me, and I started doing more of that with myself, and then I started practicing with others, and I started seeing the shift. And I really got to this place of saying, okay, like I'm going to be this type of breathwork facilitator because I really want people to have a breakthrough. There's all kinds of ways you can do breath work. And a part of it was getting to that place of being authentic with who I was, because I do have a background in executive coaching. I do have this corporate career track that was kind of part of my journey too. and so the way I speak and the way I channel is very much aligned to that. It's not aligned to somebody, like if you went to like a yoga studio and you found a yoga teacher who's done tons of hours of yoga training and the language they use or the softness in their voice. I'm a lot more of the breakthrough coaching kind of space, and I'm coupling it with the power of breath work to really create that breakthrough in you, because I've seen it in me. The teacher that I studied with that resonated the most with me was someone who also was like a breakthrough master. So like his language, his cueing was very much aligned to what I could hear and what then created the breakthrough in me. And I think that's kind of maybe what brought me here. I think I was at a place in my life where I had lost whew, 5 friends that were really, really dear and close to me, my age. And I think going through that grief, not knowing how to come out of it, like I was in a place where, like I was cleaning out my house and like throwing away things and being like, well, if I die, none of this is going to matter to anybody else. So there's no point for me to keep it. And at that moment, I realized I was like, something has to give, like there's something going on. And what was unique though, was like, even though that experience was so unique to me, because it was during these COVID years, it was quite universal. I think this feeling of grief and loss and anxiety was so much bigger than just me. It was so universal. Just the context of the story might be different for each individual. And I think from there, I was like, okay, well, like if this worked for me, this is something I want to share and spread. I want it to work for others. I'm a firm believer in like the things that I buy into. I'm happy to share them with everyone else because I want everyone else to get that same benefit.
First of all, I want to thank you for being so open and vulnerable and transparent. I appreciate that so deeply because, um, you know, just like how you were talking about how it's universal, there's so much power in us as people being able to allow ourselves to get there in front of other people because it helps other people when we're vulnerable and we're open and about the things that we are going through and experience. It always resonates and touches somebody who like needs to like hear it and know it. you know it's like it's affirming for other people that are going through similar things, so thank you for that. uh you know there's something about the like being able to express yourself, the healing that comes from doing that. It's like you can't even really put it into words. you know
Yeah, I do know. I do know. I mean, it's one thing for me to like witness like my clients having a breakthrough, but it's a totally different thing for me to be leading the session and guiding them through it because I'm actually healing and transforming myself through that work too.
This is so crazy that we're having this conversation. Like, I didn't know that we were going to be talking about some of the things that we're talking about. But it's like, it's the end of the year. And, I sometimes will do a letter, as the founder of the organization. And literally, the reflection word that I have for this year's letter is breakthrough. And so it's just like, it's mind blowing. Again, back to the universalness of things. It's just so mind blowing how universal everything is when it comes to the things that we experience and the things that we go through. And even though you were having a hard time with the losses of the 5 people that were close to you, it's like, look at how much, and you don't even see it all yet, but I'm like, look at how much good is coming out of that hard, tough space. You know, it's like, think about it. Like we try so hard, I think sometimes, and I'm not talking about just you and I'm just talking about in general. I feel like people try so hard to avoid going through hard things, tough things, you know? But it's in going through those tough things and those hard things that we not only get what we need for ourselves, but we help other people move towards what they need, you know?
No, that's
So,
absolutely true.
yeah, do you have something? Because I was going to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
So I have there's a person that I know, and they like changed their name. And it's like totally, I don't know if would I say they changed their persona? I mean, kind of. And I thought it was really cool because I was like, wow, like look at them. They're like totally like something else now. I'm like, how freeing is that to be able to do that? Because even in your shift, you were able to do, or you are in the process of doing some of that.
You know what? It's a lot harder than I really thought, because the more I'm trying to step into this new identity, the more my old identity is holding a grip on me and saying, no, this is the true you. And the more I'm being confronted with that in the universe, like when I'm interacting with people or I'm meeting people, like getting people to call me Japa outside of the breathwork world is really almost impossible. And so one of the things that you had shared was, I was like, well, maybe this is my artist's name, right? And so it's like, as I'm moving in more and more into my art and into my gift and sharing this with the world, and maybe as more people are come into breathwork experiences with me, they'll get to know me as Japa, and maybe that'll spread into a bigger platform than my previous identity. But I think breaking that and changing that, especially with like family and friends, is really almost impossible. I feel like with new people, it's easier because they don't know you. So they are more open to accepting you as however you present yourself. And one of the challenges I've just come to terms with is like, where do I want to focus my energy? Because that energy of battling with like, why are you going through this? Why are you doing this? Like versus just saying, just moving into the flow with the new, and letting the old be the old is sometimes a better way to flow versus resist it. Because I think, defending myself and defending my journey or explaining it from a logical perspective blocks the flow of me being, in my space, in my gift, in my art.
Okay, there's so many places I want to go with this. Because I was getting images or flashes of like mainstream, like popular artists, performing artists, primarily just because they're so easy to see, who, they have this identity or this persona when they are on stage, but then when they're off of stage, they're not necessarily that same thing. And so I was seeing that in my mind, and then I was thinking, like, I wonder if because you're like an artist or you're a creative, it's so easy for people to accept. It's like, and give you the freedom to be like something that's like way out there. Again, this idea of like going up to a higher level or transcending. Um, but if you're not carrying the artist, a label of artist or creative, then it's like people don't want to give you the freedom to be all that. It's like, no, come on back down here. Be in your regular space. What is that phrase that's like, don't make yourself small for other people? That I'm jacking it up, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like you don't show up and like who you really are because you don't want anyone else to feel some kind of way because you're not making yourself small enough for them.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think like there's such a big fear, and we all have it, whether we admit it or not, of someone becoming something different or new, because what that means is the version that we know of them is no longer there, and we're scared to experience them in their new light, necessary, in some capacity. And so I see it in this way of like, it's not necessarily making your not being small or trying to play big or any of that, but it's more like, well, can the two worlds blend? Can it be that I can be this other person to these people because that's how they've known me, my family, my friends, and I can be this artist, I can be this healer, I can be this person on my journey and on my path, and invite in everybody that wants to know me from this side. And I think that's kind of what I've gone through. I have a women's group that I'm a part of, and, they've known me, as Japa, they've known me as my other name. And then, and then it was like back and forth, and they're like, we're happy to move in the direction you want us to go, but tell us, who do you want to be? And I thought that was really beautiful when they gave me permission to say, hey, I want you to know me as Japa. And I think sometimes you just have to find your circle and your crowd that's doing that. And I'll tell you, it's usually not family and friends that have known you, because they're like, what? Who's this now? But I think blending the two is something interesting too. And like you said, you brought up a good point where, with artists and actors too, they have this persona that they fill on stage or, behind the scenes, but then when they go home, there's somebody else. And one of the things I've been trying to do is, I think, which will take time, is slowly moving so that my authentic self, because I've gone through this journey, is more aligned in both the breathwork world as well as in my personal world, how I show up, whether they want to call me Japa or not, that's irrelevant.
And that was the word I was going to bring up, because I'm like, at some point, I feel like then we have to like really be paying attention to how authentic are we being? Like, are we really living an authentic life if we are going back and forth between the who we know we are and like who we used to be, or who we feel like people will accept us to be?
Yeah. When I was telling you, the inner battle is really strong, because as I started stepping into this new version of me within myself, the old version of me became very strong. And that identity was like, this is who you are at your core. So I think how the external world knows you is truly a reflection of how you know yourself. And when you're in that battle of toggling between, this is who I am as an artist, and this, but I'm this person behind the scenes as a human, and if you're not able to blend the two, then you're living, I would say, a fragmented life. And it will make, so instance, for some people that is exactly, they're authentic in their spaces, but blending isn't necessarily their thing. But I think for someone like me, like I said, people can call me Japa or something else, but really what's authentic for me is me being true to my my path.
Yeah. I think now my question is, when you are on the path or the journey to continue evolving and becoming more aligned with your true self, I'll just say it like that. Yeah, my question is, because I feel like there's a lot of gray area and space to get off, in terms of like, there could be a lot of confusion there when you're trying to really hone in on your true self and your identity and who you really are, because that battle is so strong. And then you can start listening to all these other people, right? So it's like, how do you keep your true north? Like, what's your compass to know that you are aligning with like who you were really created to be? Ooh, how about that question?
Oh, that's deep. Because I will tell you, especially, for me, the biggest differentiator is, executive coaching or breathwork coaching. So it's very, very small because I'm still doing breakthrough coaching in both realms. But the avenue through which vehicle through which I'm getting there is slightly different, right? Executive coaching, you're doing pen and paper writing, and we're doing analytics. Breakthrough coaching, no, breathwork coaching, we're doing none of that. You're just breathing, and I'm doing the cueing. And so, to stay on point, what I always say is like, am I working from my head or my heart? And that always has been what guides me towards my true north. I think finding this path to where I'm at now, and it's not to say it may not evolve, it may not become something more or turn into something else, but where I'm at now, I think has always been in these little things like chanting and gratitude walks and, little things, inspirational conversations. They've all been leading me from my heart. And the other stuff, the corporate work, and the executive work has always been from my head. And to stay from a place from your heart, like, to me, when I do a session, when I do a breathwork session with someone else, how it makes me feel afterwards, like I am on a high. And I love it. And then, and it's also something I practice. I do breath work regularly myself, sometimes daily, sometimes every other day, sometimes weekly, whatever could be going on. But I think that's what keeps me connected. Rarely am I doing a breakthrough session from my head with myself,
Yeah, that's good. I like how you articulated your your answer to that question. I mean, I can relate to that because I feel like growing up in a household where I always had a very like front and center understanding of God. It was like I always wanted to live my life from like God being my compass. But like even in that, there you can get, it's easy to get confused, and there can be some gray area again when you have other people that are giving you their perceptions and their ideas and their thoughts about who God is. It's like until you experience God like in a personal way, and you have that understanding of truth from that place, then I feel like, again, like your compass can get kind of off.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things is like, you have to, as you're moving forward, you have to keep in mind that pivotal moment, that turning point, right? I was telling you, like, I've done all these things where the path was straightforward, is really easy. And then I stumbled and I came upon something where I had to really dig to find my path. And I think that moment where I was like, hey, something's not normal, when I was giving my things away or whatever I was doing, because the logic in my head was, well, if I die, none of this stuff is going to matter to anyone. In that moment where I had that realization of like, hey, something's got to give. This is not normal. This is not normal thinking. This is not normal doing, normal being. You are live. You are alive. You are living. You need to live. That moment was a turning point for me. And I think when I realized what happened after that moment, the breakthroughs I've had, like, I mean, and I will tell you, just yesterday, I was talking to someone and I was saying, I was somehow thought passed my mind somehow for yesterday's date. Then I was looking back a year ago to where I'm at now. I would have never a year ago thought I'd be here where I am right now, a year later. And I think when you can recall that moment that shifts you, and you keep that as your compass point because you see everything that came after that moment that transformed you. And I think that a lot of times people get caught up in, well, this moment's not right because you've taken 5 steps forward and now you're stuck at a roadblock, but that doesn't mean that's the end, or you got to turn back, or you got to take a shortcut. It means you still got to, pummel your way through, but just don't forget how far you've come.
Yes, you get all the snaps for that. Okay, breaking it down. Okay, I'm trying to imagine you as a little girl, like, little Japa. Because you went into executive coaching and stuff like that. Were you a young lady that was like, listen, like you could tell people how it was, and you like had a lot of like sass and knowledge? Were you like that as
I
a kid?
did. I was like that. It got me in a lot of trouble. So I'll say that. I think I was like good at calling out people. I think that's why being a executive coach worked for me, because when I got into executive coaching, I was paired up with like senior executives. I was in my 20s and these guys were probably in their 50s or 60s. And I remember one of the very first sessions I ever did, and they were like, what are we going to learn from you, little girl? And so I knew I had to break them right away. Right. And so what used to get me in trouble as a little girl, and sometimes still in family environments, served me really well in my professional career, and actually has supported me in getting to creating the breakthroughs in the breathwork coaching.
Okay. That's pretty cool. I like the terminology that you use. It served you for a time, and all of those different times, different things were serving you to get you to where you are now. I was
Yeah.
listening to something recently. I can't remember who it was, but they were basically talking about how we end up staying in these places of like uncomfort, because that's the only thing that's going to fuel you to keep going forward. Because when you're comfortable, there's no motivation to dig or to change or to shift or to, you know what I mean? So we just stay. So I feel like for those of us that want to continue to grow and evolve and all of those things, it's like you might as well just get ready for a life of uncomfort, because it comes with the territory.
Yeah, I think discomfort is your friend. Life is growth. And, so when I first started executive coaching, my line used to be like grow or die. Like that was kind of how I was like going with those when I was doing those sessions. But really that is the truth. Like if we're not growing, we're dying.
Yeah, that's
Right?
true.
Metaphorically, literally, physically, like we are dying if we're not growing. If we're not taking care of our body, we're allowing it to deteriorate. Right? Just something as simple as that. If we're not feeding our mind, we're not developing, we're not expanding. We're stuck at however old we were, 5, 10, 15, 20, whenever we stopped. Right. So, and also if you look at like what we're reading, what are the things we're watching, who are we listening to, all that gives indication. What kind of foods we're eating, how we're taking care of our body, our health speaks volumes, right? How we're handling stress, pressure, anxiety, the things we turn to, the addictions we have, that's all speaking to, are we growing or are we dying? And so, I've come to I was like, comfort is where you go for rest. It's not where you go to live. Discomfort is living.
So good, so true, and so uncomfortable.
It's unfortunate because a lot of people don't want to step into their discomfort, and little do they know, through that discomfort, their greatness is waiting for them on the other side.
Yeah. That's another reason why it's so important to, have the right people in your life, in your space, that can help you move into your greatness or stay in your greatness. You got to have the right people. You got to choose the right people to like be in deep relationship with, I think.
Yes, 100% you've got to. And I think one of the things that happens is we ignore our gut. Our gut instinct never misguides us or misleads us. Like when you have a feeling about a person, you've got to trust that feeling. But so often we'll say, no, that's not true. They're a good person. No, they have my best interests at heart. They're looking out for me. But truthfully, deep down inside, when your gut is telling you step away, set a boundary, take a step back, go in the other direction, you want to listen to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Um, I also want to bring up the fact that because we have all different types of artists and creatives on this podcast. Like we speak to all kinds. So I love that you said yes and came on because you're not like a traditional creative or artist, you know what I mean? Um and I think that's so important. I'm always trying to find more people to highlight or give voice to that are in these like non-traditional spaces or roles, because I'm always saying that I believe everybody has some level of creativity. Whether or not they want to be creative is their choice, but I feel like it's in everyone. The ability to create and bring something about that wasn't there, 2 seconds ago. Like we can all do that.
Yeah, I truly believe it's about the our footprint, right? Our impact. And so like so many people can step into their impact in a lot of different ways. And I feel like throughout my life, I've made an impact in different ways at different times. But I have to say, like, what helped me get into this space to really say I'm an artist and in healing and wellness is my canvas, was really when I was challenged, when I was asked, a couple years ago, I was asked to lead a retreat. And the gentleman who owned the retreat center was like, well, you have all this knowledge and all this wisdom and all this spirituality, come lead a retreat. And I was at a place where I was like, I don't have a give though. Like, I don't know my personal gift to share with the world. There's all these practices I was doing. And, with friends, I was doing mantras or chanting, and then I was doing gratitude walks and journaling, and I was doing motivational speaking, but I couldn't figure out, none of that felt like my gift, my true like calling, like this is what I believe I want to give to somebody. So when I was asked to step into this space, it took me about 4 years to say yes to that, because by the time I got to this place of understanding the power of breath work because of the impact it had on me, and I saw firsthand what it did for some of the people that I first coached and worked with, I really was like, this is what I want to give to the world. And I sometimes feel like people, we're too afraid to say this is what I want to give to the world, because it's not it's not aligned to how the world has known us. Right? Like stepping into Japa and saying I do breath work is very different than anything the world has known me as, so I think a lot of times that blocks us. And it is about finding those doors and those opportunities and those people that see this gift in you and saying, okay, well, can I explore this gift more? Can I explore it more? I didn't sit there from 4 years ago and was like, what's my gift? What's my gift? Right? Like that's not how it blossomed. I went through my own journey. I just went on with life. I kept doing more corporate work, more executive work. And then I stumbled in my personal life. And from there, I found my gift. And I think that's, if more people can just maybe sit with that, the discomfort, and go through it, because through that discomfort, they will find what they're meant to give to the world at this moment, at this stage.
Yeah. Well, I also think it takes maturity to even get to the place of being able to ask yourself the question, what do I want to give to the world? And I think that until we get to that place, I believe that we'll be somewhat limited in what we can actually do with our gift. Because when you think about it, it's like a gift is, it's only a gift when it's given.
Yeah.
You know, like if I hold on to it, it's not a gift. Well, it's a gift for myself. But if the gift was given for others, until you actually get to the place where you're willing to give it to other people, you're going to be limited in what you can actually do and accomplish.
Yeah. You're so right about that. A gift is something you give, right? It's something you share. And there's a lot of talents, a lot of creativity we all have within us, but we're so afraid to share it.
Mm-hmm.
We're so afraid to put it out there. And it takes courage to say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put this out there, and maybe it works and maybe it doesn't, and but I'm just going to go for it. I mean, I will tell you, like, this is the difference. When I did executive coaching, I cracked those people open, and I knew how to create breakthrough because I understood that world. The first time I worked with a client in breath work, that client had she was breathing, she was doing it, and I didn't see any kind of like physical breakthrough happening. And afterwards I was like, oh gosh, I suck at this. Maybe this is not what I'm meant to do, but but then she gave me feedback, and she gave me a testimonial where she was like, and I think this is on my website, where she was like, she felt like something left her body. So even though I couldn't physically see it, like it was so reaffirming that what I'm doing, this is my path, because the breakthrough she had. And I think so often we're looking for the confirmation from the outside world, or affirmation that this is what we're meant to do, versus like just trusting within ourselves. And like I said, I was in that same boat. I was like, I don't know, is this really what I'm meant to do, or is it not? But I think sometimes it's just not giving up. It's about just going and trying, and just practicing and getting there. I know I know there are times when I'm working with a group and I might not know if anybody's going to have a breakthrough, but my God, am I praying they all do, right? Because I don't know, but I was like, I hope they get what they're meant to get out of it. But ultimately, like I want them to have the breakthrough. And I see in this wellness space, a lot of people that are moving into this space from other careers, other callings, or other paths. And what's happening is they're afraid to step into it. They've done the training, they've gone to school, but they're afraid to step into it. They're afraid to lead workshops or lead massages or yoga classes or whatever it is. And I think that's a real fear that's not just in this wellness space, but I think in artistry in general. When you tap into your creative side, the world so often tells us the only way to live is from logic and not from imagination or creativity. So it kind of constantly is blocking us or telling us, no, that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to do it. Go back to your head, not step away from your heart,
Yeah, that's so good. So, and what would be your go-to advice for someone that's afraid?
Well, I would say what I did was I went to people I trusted first and said, can I practice with you? I shared my story, which was scary, and I'm more open as I'm sharing it with very small groups or individuals. I'm getting more open and comfortable sharing it. But I think a lot of times we're so focused on the people that might not support us, that might create resistance or blocks to our growth because they only know us in one way, that we can't see there's a whole other world out there that'll accept us in a new version. And it's just a matter of like finding that one person. And sometimes it's a stranger, and that's okay
Mhm.
too. It's just finding that one person that says, you've got a real gift.
Mm, that's so good. That's so good. Oh my gosh, Japa. I
Good.
think all of it was so good. I mean, this is something that somebody just can keep replaying, I'm sure. See, I was right when I started and said that they will be encouraged and uplifted by the time we finish with this conversation.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'm glad.
All right. Well, so how can people stay like connected with you and get in touch with you?
Well, they can find me on social, on Instagram, TikTok at Japa Breathwork, Japa breathwork.com. Or actually japabreathwork.com too, or just Japa Breathwork is the hashtag. No, the handle. Let me get my social media right. Social media game down right. I'm still learning all that. Or they can just email me Japa at japabreathwork.com. That works.
Yes. Okay. Did I ask you what does Japa mean anything?
So yeah, Japa is actually, it's the name I was given when I went through my spiritual journey.
Mm,
And what it actually means is like silent recitation of prayer.
mm,
So in my culture, I'm Indian and I grew up in the Sikh culture, and Japa was the type of prayer meditation we did. It's like you're repeating or you're meditating a mantra or something in repetition, in repetitive form. In the Western world, it's also known as transcendental meditation. That's that's what they call it. But I think for me, just that when I was given that name, I didn't know how to step into it. I didn't know how to step into it for a good few years, to be honest with you.
mm-hmm,
Um, but then I started, when I was going through my journey during COVID, during these COVID years, and trying to figure out how to process the grief and whatnot, I came across someone by the name of Ram Dass, and he was this American Jewish man born with the name Dr. Richard Alpert,
mm-hmm,
but had gone through his own journey and then was known in the world as Ram Dass. But his message and his wording really resonated with me. And I think it gave me somehow the courage to start saying, or start at least playing or toying around with the idea of like, can I step into Japa? Can I become this person?
mm-hmm.
Right? Because my spiritual journey was really important to me. It was really big for me in a lot of ways. But I wasn't able to grasp that name and say I want to be Japa all of a sudden, because you see that in the spiritual space, you do see that in the healing and wellness space. You'll see people that have gone through a journey and then they're using a Indian name versus their birth name. And so I kind of was like, well, I don't want to be one of those, So yeah, all the judgments we have, so but that kind of helped. And I feel like it really resonates too, because not just is it like the name that I was kind of given because of my journey, but also because Japa is repetitive meditation, right? And when you're doing the type of breath work that I guide you through for breakthrough, it is a repetitive breath work practice. You're repeating the same breath work technique, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what creates breakthrough.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I know we were going to be ending, but I just have to say this based on what you said. Because it just makes me also think about there is I want to say it's a Hebrew or a Greek word. And when it talks about meditation, it's like like the literal translation of meditation. It's like the image of like a cow that's like chewing on whatever it is they chew on. And so, the idea is that you're meditating on the truth, right? And you're chewing on it, like just like a cow would be chewing on that. And when we talk about stepping into who you really are, who you truly are as a creative, as an artist, that is so important, to be paying attention to what is it that you are repeatedly telling yourself. Like, what is it that you're chewing on, that you're meditating on? Because even if it's not spoken, you talked about the silent prayer, there is something that's always going on. So it's like, what are the things that are going on that are not coming out of your mouth? Because they have power and they're resonating within you. So it's like, yeah, we have to pay close attention to what is it that we're chewing on, that we're meditating on the daily, so that we can move in the spaces where we are authentic and we're really showing up as is who we're designed to be.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that better. That's so fantastic. Like, yes, like, what are you chewing on all day? And I will tell you, that is actually the life you're living. That's what's reflected externally of you. That's what you're witnessing and you're seeing, observing, and living. So that's a cue. Check
Yes.
on what you're chewing on.
Check on what you're chewing on. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we can drop the mic on that. Okay. Now, I don't know if somebody didn't get anything out of that. I don't know what to tell y'all. No, I'm just kidding. We tell you love and peace and listen again. All right, you guys. So I will begin to wrap this up. Once again, I have been speaking to Japa. It's been a wonderful, amazing conversation. You can find her at Japa Breathwork on all of her social media handles. Apparently, she's on them all. Okay. Japa and then Breathwork. And then if you want to email her, she's at Japa Breathwork. So yeah. And we'll probably put some of that, underneath. So just take a peek there. So until next week, you guys, you already know what it is. I want you to keep creating. I've been your girl, Melissa Sharee, and you've been listening to For the Artist, a podcast brought to you by Creative M Projects. All right, y'all. Peace.
Yeah.